Welcome back. Now, we're going to finish talking about the spine. We're going to talk about some of the really special parts at the top and the bottom. So the first thing is the very first cervical vertebrae. So C1 has a special name. It looks like this. And notice this is a typical cervical vertebrae. This does not look like this. All right. This is the atlas. I don't know why somebody decided to call it the atlas, but it's the atlas. So this is the very first thing. It connects to the base of the skull. So down at the occipital region of the skull, it connects to it's going to connect the spinal cord and or not the spinal cord, but the spine and the skull. So here it is. This is, if you're looking at it from the front, so this is the anterior view. Here's the posterior. So this is, the anatomy of this is on page 269. So let me turn it this way. Yeah. Okay, so here, this is what it looks like on that page. So this is the atlas. Now, you have the lateral mass. The lateral mass is going to be this portion here on the inside. So remember, lateral means closer to, no, it's medial. I don't know why they call this the lateral mass. All right, so lateral mass, these portions right in here, okay? Next, you have the anterior arch. So there's two arches here. There's the pointy one at the top, and then there's also a tiny little point down here at the bottom. So the one here, the one that's more pointy and closer to these little feet things here, this is the anterior arch. So it's going to be in the front. And this here is the posterior arch. Now, you also have the superior articular process, which is, make sure I tell you this right. When you look at it from the top, that would be this whole portion here. This is going to be your superior process. So here we're looking at it kind of inferiorly. Turn it over. This is your superior process. Now, your inferior process is going to be this side. So these things, you can fit your fingers right on them there. So notice on the superior side, there's a little bit more of like a dip. Here they tend to be flatter, a little bit more round, kind of like Mickey Mouse ears maybe. But on the superior side, definitely not like that. Maybe rabbit ears if you turn it this way and use your imagination. I don't know. And then you have the transverse foramen. Okay, so this is part of the C-spine, so it does have the little holes. Let's see if you can see this. It's some contrast. All right, so little holes on both sides there. So that is going to be your transverse foramen. So it doesn't look like your typical cervical vertebrae, but it still has some of those same kind of little holes there. So this is the atlas, very first cervical vertebrae. Your second cervical vertebrae is, oh, that was interesting. So this, these transverse foramen here, that is actually what passes your vertebral arteries. So this is to allow blood flow on up into the brain, right along the vertebrae. Imagine that. That's why they're called vertebral arteries. You'll need to know that for A&P too. All right, so the second cervical vertebrae, C2, also has a special name. It looks like this. This is the axis. So you have the atlas and the axis. Somebody apparently liked Greek. All right. So this is the second cervical vertebrae. There's a lot in the book that talks about the axis, also on page 269. You do not have to know a lot of these things. You need to be able to look at it and say, oh, that's the axis. So, and see how in a typical cervical vertebrae, you got rabbit ears. Here you don't have a rabbit ear, you have like one, I don't know, rhino horn. Now, so, and then you have this rhino horn here. So this is called the dens, and it's what actually provides the axis of rotation for you to say no. So the atlas and the axis are what allows your spine to move your head to say no. So it actually fits on here like this. So atlas is on top, axis is on the bottom. So this can actually pivot around. So this is your head going no, no. All right. And then notice this also does have a transverse foramen. 2 of those for those vertebral arteries. So this is the axis. This is the dens, transverse foramen. All right. Now let's go to the bottom of the spine. So after the lumbar, we get to the sacral and the coccyx area. These are all fused together. It looks like this. All right, so here's your lumbar spine, and eventually it ends, and you get into the sacrum. Actually, I think it goes like this. Nope, this way. All right. Okay, now, so this sacrum is on page 270. Now, from an anterior view, this curves forward. From a posterior view, it's curving backwards. So lateral view there. Okay, so sideways view. All right, so this is our anterior view. So when we're looking at it, this is, I know this is not where my pelvis actually is because it's my belly button. But, so this is below the spine here. So this is kind of like cradling into the pelvis. Okay, so you can refer to this whole part as the sacrum. The sacrum is 5 vertebrae that are fused together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. You can't see them there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 4, and then there's the 5th one because it's not actually fused to something else. Okay, now, so the wing-like processes, these up here, so the wings, these are called alae. A-L-A-E, alae, kind of like aloe, but not. Now, you have the sacral promontory. That would be this part here. So this looks like the body of a lumbar vertebrae. So here's sacral promontory. So near at the top, so the anterior portion there. You have a sacral foramen. That would be these portions here where these spinal nerves are coming, are exiting from the spine in and out. So there is still, and so there's 4 of those, and then the last one kind of comes out down here. And then you have your median sacral crest, and that's here. It's going to be on the back. So the sacral crest, that would be these parts here in the middle, median, and this is kind of the remnants of what the spinous process would be. So on a lumbar vertebrae, you have this huge spinous process right up here. In the sacrum, you don't really have that, but down the middle, there are still some ridges, and so that's kind of like the remnant of what that would be. And then you have the coccyx, which is these that are down here, and they're fused together. In this one, there are 1, 2, 3. And if you can see, maybe there's a line here representing that joint. So this would be the coccyx portion, the tailbone. You know, when you hit that, it hurts. And then this is the sacrum area. So this is a side view. It's going to kind of cradle on into the pelvis, anterior, posterior. So that's the base of the spine. So that finishes the spine. Next, we're going to move into the front portion.